Well, thanks, Paul. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Great pleasure to be here. Thank you for those kind words of introduction. Great pleasure to be here as, indeed, a county member of Parliament, which does, of course, give me a particular view on the challenges you all face. I do recognise the very real issues that our counties have right now. And also, yes, Paul, actually, I am the Transport Secretary who always wanted to be Transport Secretary, not because of delusions about train sets, but actually because it is the area that affects most people most of the time. You know, we all hope we never use the health service. We all use the education system when we're young and when we've got children ourselves, but transport affects all of us almost every day of every week of every year. And making a difference on transport can make a real difference to all parts of the way our society works. And it is also, of course, something that is intrinsically both national and local. It's about people, it's about places. It's about particular towns and villages. It's about their particular roads, their bridges, their stations, their ports, their airports, and the people who live near them, use them, and depend upon them. In transport, there are no generalities. No transport policy can ever be divorced from the people and the places it is designed to serve. And believe me, I'm well aware everyone has a view about transport in their areas. Sometimes it's controversial, sometimes it's contested. It's always important. So let me say a little bit about counties, and let me say a little bit also about devolution. And in terms of devolution, I listened, obviously, what you were saying a moment ago, Paul. My approach on devolution is very simple. It's pragmatism. I want structures of power, accountability, and responsibility that work. And I don't mean that work for the Department for Transport, or for Parliament, or for the transport operators, or even, apologies, for county councils. I mean structures that work for the travelling public. And I have a straightforward test for any transport network, any transport infrastructure development. Does it help people go where they want to go? And I've said to my department there are three things that they should bear in mind for new transport developments. Do they ease congestion? Do they improve important strategic routes that people want to use? Do they open up new opportunities for the housing developments that we desperately need? Do they help open up new opportunities for our economy? And of course, does transport deliver for the public safely, quickly, cleanly and affordably? If it does that, it's working, we're succeeding. But if journeys are beset by delay, congestion, crowding, needless cost or preventable pollution, then we're not succeeding and we need to take action. Now, sometimes devolution is the solution. Sometimes devolution makes a real difference, but it has to work for the public. It's not about moving deck chairs, it's about delivering better services. And we've got good examples. Transport for London, for example, have done an excellent job in pioneering smart ticketing in this country, something that I am now absolutely determined to drive right across our rail network, our bus networks, to do everything we can to end the situation. In this crazy situation, I can buy my lunch in the tea room of the House of Commons, that not necessarily always bastion of modernity, with my mobile phone. And yet I have to queue for a paper ticket on my train station in the mornings. We're seeing real changes, real developments in many of our metropolitan areas, for example. And there's some really good examples of where local services work well. Merseyrail, a case in point. Greater Manchester and the West Midlands now really involved in drawing together what they're doing on the transport front. But of course, devolution in cities isn't necessarily always the right choice elsewhere. And I think, Paul, we've also got to be very careful to ensure that cities that take on more powers through devolution do not create a democratic deficit in the surrounding areas. Counties have got different requirements. Your transport challenges include maintaining extensive local road networks, and I know how much of a challenge that is right now. Providing rural bus services, equally a major challenge, and keeping widely dispersed populations connected. There's not always agreement on who should do what, in which region, in which area, who should be responsible. And devolution isn't automatically beneficial for every single area. It's also important to recognise that county councils already hold significant transport powers and they use them well. So my position is very simple. I'm very open to any county's proposals for how things could work even better. But when we talk about devolution, we should do so on the basis of evidence of what's really going to improve things for the passenger, for the travelling public. Whether it's the commuter catching his or her daily train to work, the motorist trying to avoid congestion, the truck driver moving freight for a living, the young person on their way to school, or the retired person taking the bus to the high street. Devolution isn't about devolution for its own sake. It's not about changes that make look attractive from an administrative point of view or a political perspective. If we move responsibilities and powers around just because we want to control things, it actually looks like the endless rearrangement of deck chairs to the travelling public. And we've done too much of that over the years. And the same goes for subnational regional transport bodies. If we're to set up new bodies funded by taxpayers, we have to have very good reasons for doing so, and they need to demonstrate the value they add as well. Now, we've got some really good initial departures on that. Transport for the North, Midland Connect, are both doing, I think, very good work in helping shape strategies across their regions, proving the benefits that come from local decision-making and local involvement. And I think bodies like these can be part of the solutions in other areas as well, even if they're not the answer for every part of the country. So I'm very happy, Paul, to engage in discussion about devolution. You're absolutely right to say that what you do about devolution, it's something where we should be responsive to local needs as well, where we should be listening to what local bodies say. But ultimately, why do we do it? Why do we move powers around? We do it because it makes a difference to the public. And that, to my mind, is the test that should be applied to any organisational change. And sometimes the best way to get things done is just for the government to stump up the cash. And but I'd be lying to you if I said I have endless pots of money, I'm afraid. And actually, we do have a real job at hand to make the money go further. And that's a big challenge for us all to work together on. But look, I mean, we are nonetheless providing support for some very long overdue projects. You know, if you look at Lancashire, for example, the Bay Gateway Road, first proposed in 1948, Lancashire County Council made the case. We backed it with £100 million of government funds. That road opened last week. The biggest new road to open in the county for decades, better access to Morecambe and to Heysham. And then there's new Bedale bypass in North Yorkshire, opened this summer following £30 million of government investment. It reduced congestion in the town centre, improved journey times into the Dales, provided better access to the Leeming Bar industrial estate. Cornwall, the A30, we're funding improvements there too. By spring, it will be possible to drive from central London to Camborne on dual carriageway standard roads for the first time. Nottinghamshire, the Hucknall Town Improvement Centre, currently under construction with government support, taking traffic out of the town centre, improving quality of life. Suffolk, £150 million for new bridges at Ipswich and Lowestoft. So there are projects happening around the country, and I take on board what you say, Paul, about your disappointment on the Local Growth Fund. We don't control the allocation of the Local Growth Fund, but I will look very carefully at whether there is something that's happened that we're not aware of. I'm not aware that we're trying to scale back what we're doing, but I will take a look at that. Okay, I'll take a look at that one. Well, I mean, the genuine truth is that we believe there is a need to invest in infrastructure, and as a government, we're doing more to invest in the infrastructure in this country than has happened for a very long time. And we will carry on doing that. And certainly, it is neither on my agenda nor the Chancellor's agenda to scale back the investment we are making in infrastructure around the country. It is too important for the future of our economy. And you know, the other players, of course, in this, not just the counties, not just the councils, the LEPs as well. I've been very impressed by the achievements of LEPs around the country. There are many people in this room today who sit on LEP boards doing a really good job to try and harness together business communities and local authorities, and indeed the partnership with government as well. I think the LEPs have done a great job considering transport in the context of local needs, such as housing, employment and economic development. And I said that's a crucial linkage as to where we put our money for the future. Thanks to their work, over 500 schemes are in planning or construction for completion in this Parliament. So there is a huge amount of work going on that will make a difference for motorists, for cyclists, for rail passengers and the rest. And proof that it's not just the big cities benefiting from investment in transport, but the whole country. But what I'd like to do is close my remarks, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have on what you do every day to keep transport moving. You know, from my point of view, the headlines usually focus on big projects like the decision on Heathrow, like the decisions on HS2. But I don't forget that local services are maintained by county councils. And I say I know that as a county MP. The local roads that people that I travel on in my own constituency and around the county, the concessionary bus passes that you issue to the older generation, last year almost 10 million of them, all underpinned by the local transport plans that guide my department in the allocation of funds. Keeping on top of all that isn't easy, but I have to say I think our counties are doing a really good job in tough circumstances, and I'm well aware of the pressures that come from the ageing population and the difficulties you have in meeting all the different priorities that lie at your door. But ultimately, of course, local transport is what keeps your areas moving. It's what keeps your local businesses working. It's what keeps the commuters commuting. It is a really important part of what you do. I'm very grateful to you for all that you do. We're going to have many lively conversations, I'm sure, during my time as Secretary of State. My commitment to you is that I will always do my best to secure as much investment as possible in the right way, in the right places. You know, I'm not going to be able to provide you with everything that you want. I wish I could, but we live in the real world. But I believe very strongly that infrastructure investment is crucial to our future, that it makes a difference to our counties. We have to make sure that our counties have a voice and get what they need as much as our cities. As I say, we've got to be very careful indeed to make sure that as our cities become stronger, we do not develop a democratic deficit in the areas around them. So big challenges for all of us, but you know, actually, we've always had a great partnership between government and counties. My department and the counties will carry on working together. I will be a constant place to come and talk, to listen to what you're doing, to hear the challenges. I'll do my best to help you secure the improvements you need. Thank you.
Martin Tett, I'm leader of Buckinghamshire County Council. You're lucky I'm going to resist the temptation to ask a question about HS2. I was interested that you mentioned Midland Connect and Transport for the North, but you didn't refer to England's economic heartland, which is the alliance of some 12 transport authorities and all of the LEPs stretching between Oxfordshire and Cambridgeshire through Milton Keynes and Bedfordshire. We're heavily engaged with your officials. We're working with the National Infrastructure Commission. What more do we have to do to make sure that next year we're top of your list of sub-regional transport authorities that you mentioned?
I think, given my particular interest in the East-West Rail Corridor, you don't have to do anything to make sure you are right up there on the priority list, and I think we're going to be having many conversations about that in the months ahead.
Right. Yes, sorry.
Good morning, Secretary of State. Two quick questions. Firstly, the Local Growth Fund, round 3. I understand that there is pressure to put more of the Local Growth Fund 3 into the north of England, to the northern, so-called northern powerhouse, and to those LEP areas where devolution deals have already been done. I would prefer to make those allocations on the basis of need that you mentioned, Chris. I wonder if you could comment on that. Secondly, congratulations on ensuring now that we have a decision on the airport expansion in the southeast and going for Heathrow. My concern for Surrey, and I'm the deputy leader of Surrey County Council, my concern is the local infrastructure that is needed for Heathrow, if it is going to be Heathrow, to ensure that it is actually in place and fully funded before the expansion takes place. I wonder if you'd comment on that too. Thank you.
Okay, well, look, first of all, I am not aware, nothing since I became Secretary of State has crossed my path to suggest that the Local Growth Fund is being geared to the Northern Powerhouse. We should always operate on need, but we should also reflect the fact that we cannot just have an economy that works in the southeast. And therefore, we need to make sure we invest in projects around the country that make a difference. And to me, I said those 3 criteria: easing congested routes that are strategically important or regionally important, opening up new housing development opportunities, and opening up new economic development opportunities are the 3 things that should guide transport investment for the future. In terms of Heathrow, and it will be Heathrow, and we are going to see this through, it's absolutely strategically important for the whole country and for the whole of the United Kingdom. What I would say on that is that we will now clearly have to deliver, and the airport will have to deliver transport improvements. The key ones from the Surrey point of view is we're now bringing forward the proposal for the southern rail route into Heathrow. And Transport England, Highways England rather, are moving ahead with plans for the southwest quadrant of the M25, both of which I regard as being extremely important to make sure that the linkages are there and congestion is as limited as possible. We all know around junctions 9, 10, 11 of the M25, there are just perpetual traffic jams because of the way that road is designed. That needs to be addressed because it just has a feed through up to Heathrow the other way.
Right, I've got a cluster of 3 at the front here, then I'll come to the back. Yeah, please, Northamptonshire. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. Councillor Heather Smith, leader of Northamptonshire County Council. Martin Tett from Buckinghamshire has already mentioned the economic heartland. But what I wanted to emphasise, I actually chair the transport body that we've set up. This is a bottom-up body, entirely funded by all of the authorities that have concerns for the whole of the area. It's an enormous area, which is a very high growth area. Now, what we're concerned about is that there are hundreds of thousands of houses waiting to be built, but the infrastructure as it stands can't cope with that growth. We want to promote that growth. The whole of the economic heartland area is very keen to be able to get what the government wants, which is a lot more houses, but unless we get the funding for the infrastructure, we will just all grind to a halt, and this is a whole area with massive economic growth. Thank you.
Well, look, I mean, I absolutely accept that. I mean, I suppose most immediately what I would say is, look, I'm often asked the question, why are we wasting billions of pounds on cutting 20 minutes off the journey time to Birmingham? If I look at the people who benefit from HS2, Northampton and Milton Keynes, for example, are 2 prime examples. The number of commuter seats into Euston, for example, in the morning will almost double. The ability to run far more services and better services to your part of the world from London and from there to Birmingham. And one of the crazinesses about our rail system is the fact there's only a 2-track railway into Birmingham. And of course you've got freight trains, the local trains and the express trains all mingled up and causing constant delays. HS2 gets rid of that problem to a significant degree. So first thing is we're bringing a huge amount of money in something that will make a real difference to your part of the world, perhaps almost more than any other, in terms of capacity generation. But beyond that, there are many things that we have to do. I say East-West Rail is one very clear example of that for the lower part of the area that your sub-regional body covers, but we need to look at road improvements around Northampton, road improvements around the other growth areas, because they will be crucial to making those developments possible. As I said, we need to spend money on those 3 criteria, and one of them is unlocking the housing developments.
Fine, we've got 2 at the front here. Gentleman behind Byron, yeah.
Okay, good morning, Minister. I'm Alan Rhodes. I'm the leader of Nottinghamshire County Council, and thank you for mentioning the Hucknall Town Centre improvements. That's an excellent scheme that's going to make a real difference. But I want to ask you, if I can, about Midland Mainline electrification. Extremely important to businesses and communities along that line, and there's a concern from recent speculation that we're being left behind. We did have some assurances from your predecessor about a timetable for the Midland Mainline electrification. I wonder if you can give us some assurances today about that in terms of an assurance is going to happen and some indication as to when that might happen.
Well, I mean, the first thing is work is, of course, taking place at the moment. But what matters, actually, first and foremost, I want to deliver capacity improvements quicker for you in the East Midlands, because the big issue across our network is capacity. What we're trying to do is to improve capacity of our transport system where we can, improve speeds of journey on our transport system. I want that to happen sooner. And so I'm looking at the moment at ways in which I can bring forward elements of that modernisation programme so we can deliver a better service quicker to Nottingham, quicker to Derby, quicker to Sheffield. So the need to upgrade and improve the Midland Main Line is absolutely there. It's a genuine priority and the work is already happening.
Very good. I think we've got time for 4 more questions. I've got Byron, I've got East Sussex, I've got Hampshire, and the gentleman with his hand up there, and then we'll have to bring it to a conclusion. So, Byron.
Byron Rhodes, Leicestershire. Just to carry on from the question my colleague Alan Rhodes has just put forward on Midland Main Line. It rather looks as though the electrification is going to proceed nevertheless slower than we'd hoped. But the Midland Main Line franchise runs out in 2018. Now, you need some new trains. So would you sanction the provision of bimode trains so that whatever happens, we can keep the services running at the highest possible standard?
One of the things I'm looking at on the, don't make any assumptions about timing, but one of the things I am looking at is, because actually the issue of capacity and service speed is about the trains, and I'm looking at ways in which we can bring forward getting newer, better trains and new, better trains to the Midland Main Line. So I'm very much on the same page. I want to get those improvements as quickly as possible. And of course, dividing the nature of the services, so we have almost a separation between Corby and London and between Sheffield and London, actually gives us the opportunity to provide a better commuter service from the southern end of Leicestershire, but also a better intercity service from the East Midlands.
Keith Glazier, East Sussex leader. I'm pleased you're going to look at the LGF3 because clearly there are some really serious issues for us in the southeast there, biggest outside of London. The question really, and there was a groan about the southeast investment earlier, but you are, through your department, investing in some small schemes around East Sussex, when really we need a dual carriageway. At the moment we have virtually none. We have no motorways, as you know. The east-west route through East Sussex, West Sussex is dire, and I just ask if you could look at it as a whole, which is what we were doing through our devolution deal.
The answer to that is yes. Highways England are making some improvements along the A27 route, but there is some way to go. Of course, the challenge is that if it was easy to do, it would have been done a long time ago. But of course, when you come that sort of cheerful meeting between beautiful countryside and the need for a dual carriageway, that's when life becomes much more difficult.
Right, we've got two more finally. Gentleman next door to... And then Hampshire.
Good morning, Minister. Adam Painter, Deputy Leader, Cornwall Council. Thank you for the mention of Cornwall. We're enjoying working with your department through our devolution deal, improving both the rail and bus network. Unfortunately, by next year, you won't be able to drive down to Camborne. We still have 8 miles of single track road on the A30 that needs improvement. It'll be great if you could possibly speed that scheme up to deliver it as soon as possible. I think the current time frame is not until 2020. The Bodmin scheme, or just slightly to the east of Bodmin scheme, is due to be finished by the end of next year, or partway through next year. But yes, that next scheme badly needs doing before we can get down to Camborne. So any help with that will be much appreciated. Thank you.
Right, noted. Will do.
Hampshire, and then one more lady. That's it. Oh, you've got your microphone. Far away. Far away. Yeah, and then Hampshire finally.
Okay, thank you. Leslie Williams, Labour Group Leader on Gloucestershire County Council. I think I'd be missing an opportunity if I didn't mention the A417, which has an area called the Missing Link, which is in need of something doing about it, and this has been on the cards now for well over 20 years. It certainly meets your criteria, but another one, doing that would save lives, which I think is equally as important. So could I possibly ask you to put that high on your agenda?
Well, just to reassure you, the excellent Gloucestershire MPs are already on the case. They came to see me about 2 weeks ago, and I've asked Highways England to come back to me quickly as possible with plans. It is in the development phase at the moment, but I do want to see that as quick as we can delivered.
And finally, Hampshire.
Keith Manns, Deputy Leader of Hampshire County Council. We have 3 very large engineering projects in this country. Obviously HS2 if it happens, Heathrow and Hinckley, Point B. We already have a shortage of civil engineers, so what is your department going to do, Secretary of State, to ensure any of these other projects that we mentioned this morning actually see the light of day?
Well, we're a lot better than we used to be. You're right that we have a shortage of civil engineers, though if you go to any of these projects, you will see a whole range of young people now forging careers in them. If you take HS2 as an example, we are just about to open the high-speed college in Birmingham that will, I hope, bring through a generation of students who will make a career out of high-speed rail, because this is not something that's going to end in 2 years. It takes them on well into the 2030s. and a huge amount of effort being put into apprenticeships, but also a lot of people who've been doing it already. People who worked on the Olympics, people who worked on Crossrail. We are now doing major engineering projects in this country in a way we simply didn't in the past. Yes, we still have skill shortages, and it would be an illusion to think we will not need some international skills to deliver those, and we'll have to have those on our projects. We do already. But there is a new generation of young people coming through the projects that are already happening and have already happening. And I think we will be well placed as a result of these investments to both develop but also sustain the skills we're going to need beyond those projects, because we'll undoubtedly be more when those are done.
Right, on all our behalfs, I think we should thank Chris for taking time out of an enormously busy schedule to address us here this morning. I'm sure we're all much encouraged by the fact that the Treasury agree that they need to spend more money on infrastructure, not less money on infrastructure, and look forward very much to the autumn statement. And perhaps you could take it away and look at some of the LEP allocations, because they are provisional and enormous concern that they're well below expectation. But I hope we've got your week off to a good start, and thank you on all our behalves again.